attorney. And the mayor stopped her because policy is not to speak negative.
I will now call the September 2024 Coburg City Council meeting to order. The meeting is starting at 6:05. Have the Pledge of Allegiance. Counselor Smith, would you like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sammy, would you please do roll call?
Yes, we have Counselor Smith.
Here.
Counselor Engelbretson,
Over here.
or Mayor Bell,
Here.
Counselor Lyman,
Here.
Counselor Wells,
Here.
and Counselor Bauman.
Here.
Counselor Fox is absent. We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is mayor's comments. And I would like to read the proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I will, this is important. Coburg is not immune, and I'm sure our chief of police can attest to that. No community anywhere in the world is immune to domestic violence. I think we have limited amount here, but I really can't even attest to that. So I will read the proclamation, and thank you for your patience. Whereas millions of Americans face physical and emotional abuse at the hands of their significant other each year, and whereas in Oregon, 39.8% of women and 36.2% of men experience intimate partner domestic violence in their lifetimes. And whereas domestic violence knows no boundaries, impacting women, men, and children of every age, race, ethnicity, economic background, and beliefs. And whereas the impact of domestic violence directly affects individuals and communities when society ignores or tolerates violence in relationships. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for citizens to learn more about preventing domestic violence and for increasing the public's awareness of domestic violence. Now, therefore, I, Nancy Bell, Mayor of the City of Coburg, Oregon, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Coburg, and we encourage all community members to dedicate themselves to domestic violence prevention and to join in this observance. Thank you very much. That's always a very sobering thought, and when you read the statistics, that's also very sobering. On a lighter note, and maybe I should have started with that, I hope everybody enjoyed the antique fair this weekend. I think it was a Herculean job from all involved: Public Works, police force, Main Street, Claire, I know, was there manning a booth at least part of the time. I was not. I was just wandering around enjoying myself. But I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I know Megan was out early Saturday morning because I happened to be out walking early Saturday morning and she was out buzzing around, I think in the Public Works golf cart because something happened with the one that she had reserved. So it really was a joint effort, and that is, I think, you were saying the food trucks all sold out, and I mean, it is a huge economic boon to this entire community. I know parking is always difficult, but it is one day out of a year. And so I think that actually, I thought that too went very well this year. I think there were lots that were dedicated. I think people put out little barriers to preserve their driveways or parking areas. So it seemed to go well. I don't know, anybody have any difference of opinion on that?
Well, not
Counselor Bowman?
oh, sorry, I should have raised my hand. Whoops.
Hey, it's fine.
Not a difference of opinion whatsoever, but I did hear some people say that it would have been nice to have more places to sit down,
Okay.
because I noticed and people kept saying, and I kept overhearing that they were sitting on curbs looking for places to sit down.
Good input. Good input.
And the picnic benches were all full. There was quite a line of people.
Sure. That makes perfect sense, and I'm sure that, we'll bring that to Main Street. I know that Counselor Smith, it sits on Main Street, and I know that you go to Main Street.
Yes.
Counselor Bowman, and I do periodically to those meetings, and we will certainly give that feedback. Ms. Dompey may already have that feedback in her notes. She's highly organized, but I bet if she heard the same thing. So I thought it was a huge success.
But I mean, you
Yeah.
did my packet.
Oh.
Mailbox.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Did you grab mine today?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Thank you.
We're just waiting for those packets to arrive because they were in the mailbox. I managed to pick mine up this morning. I did read the information on my iPad, but I do also like to have a hard copy in front of me. It helps me. I'll wait till Counselor Wells is back. Counselor Smith.
The Antique Fair, just wanted, and Megan had talked about it as well, just a public shout out to the police department and also Public Works. The parks, I took a walk on Friday night and the parks were literally just gorgeous. They looked like so much effort had obviously gone into it. They looked amazing. The streets were all swept and it was just obvious. So thank you. It looked great. Lots of community pride was shown for what you all did. It was wonderful.
It really is a joint effort. No one person can do all of this. It really takes the entire team. In terms of the revenue subcommittee appointment, we have talked about this several times. We know from looking at budgets and looking forward that our revenues are shrinking. Again, that's not just Coburg, that is every state certainly, or every community in Oregon. I would venture a guess and say it's probably every community across the United States. Revenues simply are not keeping up with that inflationary curve for costs. So the subcommittee, I want to remind you of the purpose, will work with me and the city administrator with support from the finance director to review different possible revenue models or methodologies in terms of total revenue potential, resident and customer impact, cumulative effects, and to provide recommendations from that committee. And it will be a small committee Then those recommendations will come back to council to be acted on. Those will not be acted on without council approval. So the scope will be looking at utility rates, water and sewer, fees on utility bill like parks and open spaces, public safety, tree, other miscellaneous fees like business licenses, diesel tax. Nothing is really off the table. We have to be creative, and even though it's difficult and maybe painful, we do need to be able to look forward on that. So we're looking at a total of 7 to 8 meetings. And I want to tell you that as mayor, it is my prerogative to appoint people to that committee, and I have chosen 2 people to serve on that committee. And so I want to address that with council. I think you'll all be very pleased, but Councillor Smith and Councillor Engebretson have agreed to serve on that committee with me and look at everything and bring those recommendations back to the council, the full council, for consideration and approval of which ones we move forward. So, is there any comments or discussion about that? Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move right on. Sammy, are there any proposed changes to tonight's agenda?
We do. You guys, the red folders weren't out, but you all have the city administrator report in front of you. So that will be in addition under agenda item 11. And then agenda item 10, our quarterly police report was removed from the agenda. That won't be happening tonight.
Thank you very much. The next item is public comment. Sammy, has anyone signed up to provide citizen testimony?
We do not have anybody signed up.
Very much. Everybody's home getting ready to watch the debates, probably. Maybe. We have the consent agenda next, minutes for July 9th and minutes for July 23rd. Do any council members wish to remove an item or amend an item in the consent agenda? Hearing none, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as stated.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilor Baumann. Do I have a second? Second. And a second by Councilor Smith. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And I heard any opposed. I'll ask the question. I don't think so, since you all said aye. So that will be 5 in favor and 0 opposed, and the motion passes as presented. Move on to ordinances and resolutions and contracts. Our big item is we do have an employment agreement for Mr. Hanks. As you know, we discussed this in July, wasn't it? We took August off, and Adam was gracious enough to wait on his contract. So that is in your packets, and there's both the proposed contract for approval as well as the contract, the previous contract that with the red lines through it for your, hopefully you've all had a chance to sort of take a look at that. We worked really hard on that. I got input back from all of the counselors. I really appreciate that, and all staff, all department heads gave great input, and we're very pleased with Adam's performance, and want to move this on, wrap it up.
Mayor Bill,
Yes,
there is one typo, and I don't know if it's significant. On page
Page 4 of 6 of the contract, under definitions, the third paragraph down, it still says the employee in her office capacity.
Oh.
So you might want to
Oh, yes.
push the pronoun.
Oh, just a minor
It's
thing,
very
huh?
minor.
Probably would be wise if we did the contract in gender neutral.
Correct. That's was gonna be my suggestion as well.
Yes. Any other changes or notices there? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the attached employment agreement between the city of Coburg and Adam Hanks for the position of city administrator.
You. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
So we have a motion by Counselor Engebretson and a second by Counselor Wells to approve the employment agreement between the city of Coburg and Adam Hanks for the position of city administrator. Is there any discussion?
I had one
Counselor
quick,
Bowman.
I had one quick thing just because I didn't quite understand it. It said that there is a budgetary impact of $5,000. Is that a salary increase from what it was, or is that a bonus? I wasn't quite clear what that was.
Yeah, the contract adjusted the base salary from the 110 to 115. So
Okay, got it. So it's not anything additional.
it is additional compared to the 1-year contract that I was operating on.
It's not like a bonus incentive or anything
No.
like that.
Correct.
Just clarifying.
Thank you. Good question. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
I
Opposed? No. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. So our next agenda item are the legislative priorities for 25-26 from the League of Oregon Cities Survey. Adam, were you going to speak to those?
Sure, I'll give a quick overview. The League of Oregon Cities has historically asked its members prior to the full state legislative session to weigh in on their top, what each city would think of their top priorities for the League of Oregon Cities to spend their lobby time, all of their time during session, which is extensive. They spend a lot of time prep and during the legislature. And so that's going to start up in February. So this is due here at the end of this month to have all cities give their rankings. And so what's included in the packet is their complete list of 23. I believe there's some years where there's much more. This is pared down to 23, and they're in categories. There were 7 committees that they developed to develop these legislative priority options, and each of those committees then whittled them down to the menu that's in front of you tonight. Just for a note, I participated. I was a member of the Water and Wastewater Committee, so I was involved in kind of going through the process, and it was great. There was a lot of involvement. The committees were fairly large. They were Zoom only, so it really allowed a lot of participation. So there's a lot of elected officials, a lot of appointed officials, department directors, city managers, city administrators, really good dialogue and a lot of great information from League of Oregon City staff. So what I went ahead and attempted to do was to at least give you a starting point of what I thought kind of fit us best as potential top 5. Another one is they don't only do the top 5 that they end up aggregating and picking, but it does give them kind of the focus of the heavy workload that their membership expects. But they do cover, they I'm sure will be working all of these items to some degree, but it does help them know how much emphasis to place on certain things. So in the recommendation component of the staff report, I listed the 5 that I thought fit us the best. Infrastructure funding, which is happens to be part of the committee that I was on, the water and wastewater, with our current and upcoming infrastructure needs in both of our major utilities. It's a statewide that probably my guess would be a number 1 with the next one, the 2025 transportation package. I think those are probably by far going to be maybe even unanimous of the 240 some cities in Oregon as priorities. The restoration of recreational immunity was a third, and we've talked about that one here several times. Some temporary shoring up was done in the short session. More work to be done to really lock all that in the final legislation. Community safety and neighborhood livability. That one, on its face, just as a title, is a little broad. But if you go to the packet, kind of the voting guide, page 16 of that packet, which is 47 of the council packet. It says, I'll just read it real quickly. The LOC supports a strong focus on funding safety improvements on large roads such as highways and arterials that run through all communities. This includes directing federal and state dollars towards safety improvements on streets that meet the Great Streets criteria but are not owned by ODOT, and increasing funding for the Great Streets programs. And also exploring funding opportunities with similar safety needs that don't necessarily meet that criteria. Something I think really is right up our alley from the Transportation Safety Ad Hoc Committee recommendations, from work that we do with the small cities allotment, the ODOT funding. So I think this is really a companion piece to the transportation package, even though it's labeled as a pretty broad title. So that one was, I'll go back to that. That was number 4. And then the 5th one was employment, lands, readiness, and availability. And that one, feeds right to our conversations we've had about the 107 acres on the other side. And that property owner has been a recipient already of some Business Oregon funding. As we look towards having our infrastructure able to serve what may be there, I think focusing on programs and having programs in place that provide funding opportunities that meet regional priority employment job, kind of job density, job intensity, and helping local jurisdictions do the infrastructure part to make those happen. I thought was important and fit what's upcoming for us. So those were the 5 that I thought kind of fit us the best for what we have sitting in front of us, but all of them are quality legislative priorities, and just looking for councils. We could, it gets weird to get into a bunch of voting and doing a bunch of ballots. Sammy and I didn't necessarily prepare for a whole bunch of competing ballots to find out where council is on its 5. But if there's others that you want to discuss besides those 5, to swap out and replace, that is completely appropriate, and we can note those down. And it's a really easy process for us on the staff side later this week to upload that to their online ballot portal, and we'll get those done before the due date. I think we've got about 2 weeks before the due date.
Discussion from council. Councilor Will.
No, I think those are 5 very good priorities. I mean, looking over the ones that we have to choose from. I mean, they're just broad enough that it can take in, a lot of different conversations. So,
Any other discussion?
I mean,
Councilor Bowman.
I think the priorities as stated and as preferred by the city staff, shall we put it that way, or as presented by you, are very, very wise, very sound, especially since we continue to wrestle with gentrification in particular. I think these are wise, sound priorities. So I would strongly prefer that these are the 5 that we put forward into the ballot.
Well, hearing not a lot of dissent or discussion, no dissent and not a lot of discussion, I would entertain a motion to accept these as presented by staff. And a second when you're ready to do that.
I'll make a motion. I move to accept the staff recommendation for the city of Coburg's top legislative priorities to submit to the League of Oregon Cities to support the LOC efforts on behalf of its member jurisdictions in the upcoming 2-year Oregon legislative session.
And I will second that.
So we have a motion by Counselor Smith and a second by Counselor Bowman to accept the staff recommendations for the city of Coburg's top legislative priorities to submit to the League of Oregon Cities to support the LOC efforts on behalf of its member jurisdictions in the upcoming 2-year Oregon legislative cycle. I asked for discussion prior to the motion, so I'm assuming there's no further discussion now. I will tell you that in case you wonder, I certainly agree with these priorities. They fall right in line with the things that we have been wrestling with as council, and certainly this community could benefit by, and LOC does a really great job of moving things forward. They were instrumental in moving the recreational community forward, in moving the needle on urban growth boundaries. They do a lot of work. When I've gone to their presentations, they are phenomenal. These are really smart, dedicated people that work on that. All those in favor of accepting the motions as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
And no opposed, so the motion passes 5-0. Very much. And we're on to Pavilion Park bid award options, and we have a staff report by Adam Hayes.
Yes, I'll give an update on that, and Brian's going to join me. So what we have, what we originally were scheduled to have on the agenda was a bid award and contract authorization from council for phase 2 of Pavilion Park. When the bids closed and we had an opportunity to go through them, and they're first scored and ranked by Branch Engineering, our contract city engineer and project managers for this project and most of our projects. They're provided to us, so they conduct the bid opening. We get the results of that, and it was immediately clear that our concerns were realized, that the bid amounts that came in were much higher than what we have left out of the original allocation of funds based on 2022 cost estimates. Spring of 2022 cost estimates was when the grant, which is not uncommon, especially in grant projects where it takes so long to acquire the funding and do the whole process. You're making estimates a long time before you're doing the project. And even without the grant part, just kind of anecdotally, it's statewide, when we're talking with our peers in different places, it's not at all uncommon to see estimates coming in at 30 to 50% higher than what the estimates, the engineer estimates start at when the design of a project, whether it's parks, streets, water, sewer, any of them. So it's clearly been one we've experienced that, here ourselves with the water projects too. So while it wasn't surprising, it was a bummer. We were hopeful that we would be able to have shaved more off of it, because what we bid out was actually not the complete remaining set of grant deliverable requirements in the first place. We knew that we were going to be off some, so we had pulled what we knew we could do ourselves and procure ourselves cheaper than what would be done through a grant process or through the bid process. So we had pulled some already away, and then the bid still being quite significantly higher than what we have budgeted. So in the packet, I tried to give a summary of really where we are. The strategy, the request instead of a request to accept the bid and authorize signature of the contract, what we're instead asking for are two things. First off, making sure you understand where we are in the project, and we can go into any of the details that you would like in some Q&A. But the ask is really to get direction from you to see if our strategy for addressing this works for you. And it's a two-parter. One is we've studied the bid components. We can make kind of yes/no type adjustments to a bid. We can't renegotiate the bid because we haven't awarded it. But what we can do with the lowest bidder, we can look at those lines and just say omit, remove, which doesn't affect, we don't have to go out and rebid and do the process over. So what we did was work with Branch and Brian and I went through comparing it to the grant deliverables, comparing it to, what we have the capability to do, what we think timeline wise, order of operations that we could pull out that doesn't affect the contractor's work. We think that we're able to, and we had a meeting with the low bidder to kind of get their feedback on our proposal of removing approximately $75,000 worth of items from the budget, from the bid. And they're kind of in two categories, that 75,000. Some of them are things that are omitted from the project. That isn't a huge amount of money, but that is some things that are omitted that weren't part of the grant requirements. So we were able to omit smaller type items, but still some money. The remainder of the removal are things that we're shifting to us to do them. So they're not, they're cost reductions, but they're not, it's not removing the total cost. It's reducing the total cost and allowing us a little more flexibility in how we do them. And in some cases, not all, when we do them. Some of them we will have to do them in the order that the contractor requires, but some we will have a little more flexibility, possibly even, likely our goal is to actually have some of them extend into the next fiscal year. So we have some funding ability. We can kind of spread the pain out a little bit further in fiscal budget. So that's the one ask to get your direction and your comfort level with finalizing a negotiation that would remove approximately 75,000 from the project bid. The other part is, as I've noted in the staff report, on the revenue side, to fund that, even after the 75,000, we're significantly short. And I outlined that the project, because the project adds land area, it was part of the land swap, they gained approximately 20% of raw land area, and many of the improvements are on that area. That would be eligible for systems development charges, the Parks SDCs, because Parks SDCs, as we've talked about before, are only for they're mandated by ORS only for growth-related infrastructure improvements in the four categories: water, wastewater, streets, and parks. And so using the 20% as just kind of a methodology marker, taking 20% of the total project cost, and that's approximately 140,000, that we are eligible legally to utilize 140,000 of Parks SDCs to fund to pay for some of the gap. The Downside, of course, is that that's not an unlimited pot of money either. It does grow with development. When development occurs, we do get SDC revenues. I think somewhat unofficially, we don't have a formal funding or a utilization strategy for our SDCs, but I think informally that's been kind of earmarked for utilization for the development of Coburg Creek Park, the newest park that had two different plots of land donated as part of the development. I think that's still the case. What a decision to utilize Parks SDCs to finish, I think properly, completely finish Pavilion Park out. What that does is maybe delay or change the phasing maybe of really that we don't have a plan for yet. But as we develop a plan, I think it would likely result in that happening slower or in a different style of park possibly. And I don't know that that's necessarily a negative at all, because we haven't really talked about what a neighborhood park there compared to a community park would look like, what kind of amenities and all that. So it's not an outright negative to kind of using up some Parks SDCs now. It's just to want to make sure we all recognize that will show itself when we start having those conversations that 140,000 less will be in that pot of money. And as a new park, a lot more flexibility in the utilization of Parks SDCs for that park. Brian and I both think that there's still some really good strategies for us when we get to that point of talking about developing that park. And I think the mayor and I have talked, about, some real initial neighborhood meetings as they're now reaching a bunch of C of Os where it's filling up fast. As I'm sure you guys have all walked through there, there's not too many. I think there's only 2 that are bare lots, maybe 3. A couple of them are the duplex lots, and only a few left under construction. So, that will be complete probably in 6 to 12 months. And then we'll be able to kind of really dig in and talk about what we want that park amenity to be. So I bring that up only not to confuse the matter, but just to recognize that that does have implications. But it is a funding source that's available to us, and it's a substantial gap closer in making this project kind of as envisioned still happen.
I'll open it for discussion, and I see Councilor Lincoln's hand up.
I favor the supplemental budget, but just a clarification, that's mostly an advance on, we're increasing the revenue side in order to fund it, even though we're increasing the expenditure side, even though the revenue is not available, or there's 140,000 in that fund, and we're going to use 75 of it. So it is funded right now. We just have to supplement budget to permit the expenditure of it.
We have the Parks SDC funds. So we have, in excess of that, I think it's, I can't remember, I'll look up the amount of total. I think I understand your question. So we have SDCs in all 4 of our funds, all 4 categories of SDCs. What we didn't do in the budget process was appropriate those funds.
Okay,
so the supplemental budget would be your legal authorization to take them from the protected spot that they're in now and actually move them over as an eligible revenue for this capital expense. Does that answer it? Yeah. Okay.
Councilor Well.
Aren't the SDC fees though utilized for maintenance of the parks primarily, or are they
No.
only for capital?
Only for growth related capital improvements. So they really can't even, if we have a capital, like in the water fund, if we had a capital project for replacement of an 8-inch water main, if that doesn't have a growth component, if that water line isn't serving additional capacity, then you couldn't use SDC money for that. You could only use it. There's calculations that would go into saying how much of it is a growth component and how much of it is just an infrastructure replacement component. So it can't be used for replacement or maintenance of any sort. It's only for growth related capital.
Well,
Yes.
and so by using $140,000 that's in the fund right now, or offset some of this shortfall, we're not going to have that $140,000 then available for any other park improvement that we want to make, including one out at Whiteman subdivision.
Right. In short, yes. It does, the balance that I listed in the staff report is end of June. So there, as building permits have come in, we do get SDC revenue. So it will grow. So as development happens. So, we will,
Said we're getting short. I mean, there's not that many more
Right.
projects that build up.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I wanted to note that it definitely does slow down the ability to further develop primarily Coburg Creek Park when we're talking about the parks SDC, because that one has such a high growth component because it's there because of new development. So it has a lot of SDC funds that could be utilized. But I don't think it's it slows us down a little bit and maybe changes how we would phase the development and what kind of amenities we put in first, and maybe some other amenities come later. But it accomplishes getting this project done. I'm not super certain on a plan B at this point on the revenue side. We did have a meeting with State Parks and Rec, who is the grant funders. That was our first course of business right after we got the grants to see, explain to them where we're at, why. And of course, his take was that this isn't unique. We saw it actually, it was just in, I think, City of Bend. I just saw it in the paper last week. City of Bend is going through the same thing. Their scale is a bit larger, but same issue of really, what do they do? Do you can the project? Do you significantly scale it down, or do you kind of defer your other future plan projects in order to fully fund the one in front of you now? And that's kind of what we did on water. We had to do the same thing. We had to say, okay, of that list that we originally thought we were going to get to, which ones are the ones we're going to want to get to, and which ones do we have to kind of defer? And that's kind of the conversation here too.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify, I think, you mentioned the idea of scaling back, and I think what I'm hearing with this particular pavilion project is you've already proposed scaling back those elements that we can scale back, and all the other elements that are still in scope are required by the grant. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly right. Yeah, thanks for summarizing that. And that is the challenge, is somewhat it's kind of already been bound up by that commitment. And we've of the 432,000, we've already got reimbursement for 250 of it. So the remainder, we couldn't, if we wanted to, the term is value engineer. If we wanted to value engineer the bid further, we could, but that means that the 171,000 of revenue from the grant funds, we wouldn't get that money, because those are, we would get, right, for everything we pull, 60% of the line item goes away. And really, at some point, the overall intent of the grant award itself kind of goes away. The grant was a lot to do with, and Brian was here, in development of it, accessibility. There was a lot of, it's heavy on accessibility, ADA parking, ADA benches, pathways. I think that round of funding from state parks, that was kind of the primary driving force of that grant round, was accessibility throughout the state in our park system. And of course, this allows us to still get there.
Is it possible to just put the brakes on the project and wait to see what additional supplemental grants are out there, and then apply for those as well, to sort of make up the difference? Because I don't want to short the development at Coburg Creek. Just Pavilion Park is great. It works. it's fine. It's sort of a happy little spot of nostalgia. I'd rather focus on developing the new.
Go for it.
Yeah, so there is a clock on the Oregon Parks and Recs grant. We're gonna come up against a deadline. So we're gonna have to ask for an extension. And we don't know how long that extension would be. The other thing about that is there's not a lot of grants out there, and the ones that are out there are very competitive. So there wouldn't be any guarantee that those grants, we could secure those grants. The other thing about the SDC is it's for the system, not just for a development. It's for the system as a whole. So if we can capture that growth component and kind of a landmark park, such as Pavilion, and still be able to do that park and that development at a lower level, I think it's a win-win. Now, when we talk about adding parks, we also are adding maintenance. So, we have to look at what type of amenities are going to go into this neighborhood park. Is it going to be something that has to be maintained daily, weekly, monthly, and how are we going to do that, right? Because our capacity is already, fairly small.
If I heard you correctly, if we scaled it back, it was in part stretching our staff to do the backfill on some of those projects items. And I'm concerned about stressing and expanding more work for our staff on this project when we've already identified a number of past projects and issues and concerns that have either gone unaddressed or not completed. So I don't think it would be wise for us to add more to our staff on that. To me, the $75,000 out of the $140,000 fund is a wise move, and it does buy you time to identify the neighborhood park down the road. You say the development's not even going to be completed until 6 to 12 months anyway.
Yeah, I'll just add that it is a lift for what we are adding significant work with that reduction. We're basically inserting ourselves, our public works team, as a subcontractor. They're basically another subcontractor to who gets the bid, because we are taking on some active components of the park construction, the park development. And some of that is soft costs of our labor that it's not free, but you're right, it absolutely diverts us from other important things. And they aren't free. We can procure some of the materials, we think, cheaper, equivalent materials, cheaper. We also really, need to, and I mentioned it in the staff report, haven't mentioned it verbally yet, is that, there's some, maybe there's some community donation potential. I think it's probably at a step past community donation potential and fundraising potential at maybe the corporate level of interest of people that are in the business of selling the materials that we need, that we, I think, can target. So, we've been talking about really anything and everything to make the project happen as envisioned, meet the grant requirements, and mitigate both what you're describing and what Councilor Bowman's describing, is trying to mitigate kind of that future impact. It has some, for sure, and you've both raised and highlighted the two primary impacts that this little economic conundrum puts us in. But the commitments have been made prior on the majority of the elements of the park. In order to get the rest of that revenue stream, we have to fulfill those commitments. What this does is it allows us to spread that out by us doing it, rather than kind of taking the bid and kind of paying retail for it being done 100% for us. And we have to kind of take some of the pain and the hits of time and effort from our team to do it. Luckily, our team is capable of handling all the things that we've pulled out of there. Not all cities of our size would have capable public works staff to do that. So that is a bonus that we're able to leverage. But yeah, all good points, and we've wrestled with the same items that you're bringing up.
If I can say, I mean, I look at how much, and you're right, Counselor Bowman. Pavilion Park is a sort of a legacy park, but it is also, in my opinion, the jewel of our park system. It is the park that everyone sees as they're coming down on Main Street. It is highly used. It is used for weddings. It is used for all of the concerts in the park and the marketplace. It is just, I can't imagine it going unfinished at this point. That's really difficult for me to even know what that would look like. So I think it is incumbent upon all of us to really take a hard look at that and listen to what our public works director and our city administrator is laying out before us and moving forward and giving them direction. We want to go.
Mayor, I would add, just to answer Councilor Bowman's spot, one more little piece that Brian hit on, that parks grants are highly competitive and there's not too many of them. And the primary grantor is Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. So our first point of order when we had our meeting, got him on the Zoom, was, have any more money for us? Is there another round of funding? And really there absolutely isn't. We're not eligible because we have an open project now. There isn't any means, but it was worth an ask because sometimes that does occur where you can present, kind of economic hardship or whatever, and that the funder they have some reserve that allocates an extra 5-10% or whatever. So we did explore that right away, and Oregon Parks and Rec, we're not an eligible entity to get any more grant funding from them until we successfully complete a project.
And it sounds like other cities are probably asking the same question.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Counselor Smith.
So I also agree, and a lot of time has already gone into planning and conversation. And staff has done a great job of being able to separate the different phases so that we can afford. Also, when it comes to Coburg Creek, I know that just in the Parks Committee, one of the goals that is often discussed is open space is nice, but it has to be planned in the future with maintenance and whatever. And the idea of when Coburg Creek does come along, Councilor Bowman, there may be opportunities depending on the design we choose to apply for grants and things to help with that. But this park, I think, to bring it to completion, there's already been a lot of work and a lot of input from community as to what it will look like and what it will have. And there's been compromises made, but I agree. I would like to see it completed. And I know it's a big chunk out of the SDCs, but it's also kind of speaks to the livability and the enhancement of our city.
Yep. And there will be an opportunity when we look at the CIP in November, December, the next year's CIP in advance of the budget. We'll for the near term projects, we'll be kind of detailing them out, and we can talk about some phasing, and the Parks Committee obviously will be involved in that. So that conversation about how we navigate that new parkland, is kind of right on the horizon as well, to at least start the planning process.
Yeah, I mean, simply, we have to spend $140,000 from our SDC funds to be able to get the $171,000 for the grant money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I get that, and that's kind of how it boils down. But I agree with you. If we could retract 6 months ago, maybe we would have looked at this differently. Because I agree, it works really well right now. As a matter of fact, I hope these improvements, this is the first time I've ever seen this site plan.
Oh, it will be gorgeous.
Will it cut back on the amount of seating area there are, for example, for the,
I think Counselor Smith can maybe,
Yeah.
and Ryan
And
can
Brian.
speak to that better than
Basically,
I.
one of the goals when we looked at it was to maintain that open area from Pavilion to Willamette.
right?
And so that we could continue to have music in the park and events and that be an open space. And then some of the other amenities like the fountain and things like that would go off to the side. But yeah, that open space, so there is a large open space for activities. That was one of the priorities.
That would be, that would be the same.
That
That's
will
not-
be the same toward.
greater.
And greater and toward Brian Thomas's home will be where most of the changes will be other. than
Yeah,
that.
so there's a large planting area on that southwest corner to kind of block traffic just a little bit. And then it comes around back towards the restroom and that will be all plantings. So it's what is called an urban forest. So there's a lot of plantings that are going into that corner to kind of provide a buffer, a sound buffer for traffic noise and things like that. And the fountain will kind of sit in front of that with a little bit of a rock wall. So yes, to answer your question, it will reduce seating capacity in that area. I don't know how big of an impact that is. Only time will tell. I think people can maybe get a little tighter inside the actual park when it comes to concerts in the park when those events occur. But I think keeping in mind that we still wanted it as like an event area, but we also wanted it during non-event times to be kind of a serene place for people to go. And that's what the fountain was for, kind of a reflection area, a sensory area. And then obviously the ADA accessible restroom was a big component to that.
One of the other conditions was to put some tables on the Willamette Street side so that when our restaurants, like during music in the park, or whatever, people then can come over and there'll be fixed tables where people can also sit for events that would not interfere with a wedding or whatever. They'd be multi-purpose. They kind of help the businesses, but they're also would make it more places to sit than just in the pavilion, because a lot of people, people would walk across the street and sit and eat or whatever. So
That's not so bad.
that was all part of the plan, was to enhance sitting area for our businesses and encourage that use, but then also keep it open enough for our events.
I think you can be very proud of the work that Brian and others in Public Works and Parks and Tree Committee have done on this, in really trying to wrestle with how do we improve the park, but how do we maintain its function? How do we meet the, everybody thinks that, oh, great, we get a grant, we're getting free money. Well, we all know there is no such thing as free money. And with grants come the stipulations as you must do X, Y, and Z. And I think that's really what we're bumping up against now. And plus the escalating costs. I mean,
Yeah.
no one could foresee the escalation.
Yeah, the electrical line item in the budget surprised us. But if you look, and I haven't talked a whole lot, I highlighted it in the staff report, but it was a very competitive bid process. 10 submittals, all very tight curve on the total bids. So we know that's what it costs in the marketplace. We're not going on a 1 or a 2 bid thing going, I wonder if we could do better. There were 10 that submitted, and all super competitive. So that does also tell us, the unfortunate truth. But one thing just to add on the design of the park, you have to keep in mind that a lot of the open utilization of the park in the past was taking place on property that the city didn't own. So, that's this whole piece, a lot of the impetus of this is the expansion of Pavilion Park and ensuring that it's actually, when you talk recreational, immunity and all that, that whole chunk was private property, but I wasn't here, but often used as if it was park land, and it wasn't. So, this is actually enlarging Pavilion Park and making it fully legally wholly a park. So I think that's a big element to this as well.
Anything else? Councilor Lehman,
I'd like to make motion.
you need a motion at this point. What
You
do
know,
need from
we
us?
toyed with that. I don't think we do. What the next steps that if this is an agreeable strategy, we will be kind of trying to speedily formalize this reduction on the bid side, the expense reduction side. We're 90% of the way there already, with them knowing that we can't finish until we have concurrence from council. But that would be what we'd work on in the next week to 2 weeks. We would attempt, and this is we'll finish this one off. I'd like to come back on the 4th Tuesday of this month, do a special meeting so we can beat the weather as much as we can and get just this item addressed and not wait for the October meeting. But what would be on the very next meeting that we need, that would be a motion, is an approval of an amended bid award with the reduction, with the items removed, and the approval via a resolution of a supplemental budget to appropriate the Parks SDC. So no decision or no motion action necessary tonight, but we didn't want to blindly put those two things in front of you in a meeting without having a conversation about it and seeing where everyone stood on that. So I don't know, consensus or direction would be what we're looking for tonight, as well as maybe a quorum check for the 24th if possible.
That's what I was going to confirm. That would be the evening of the 24th.
Right.
We would do a special.
For just those two items.
Just those two.
Yeah.
So fairly short meeting, I
Yep.
would think.
Starting when?
6 o'clock.
Alrighty. Just making sure since it's a special thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try and keep those times consistent. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, wouldn't wanna show up at like 6:30 and think, oh, yeah, hey.
Yeah, we'll send out an invitation too.
Yeah.
So, what do you need from us?
I
Counselor
have
Smith?
just one more thought in that it would be really helpful, because those of us who are novices with looking at plans and what's happening. Once we know exactly what will be included in the funding, what projects will be included or removed, it would be helpful to have a pretty clear list of this is what this will cover, this is what we plan for it to look like when it's complete, and then before there's any equipment or whatever breaking ground to fix it, it would be really nice to have a decent sized schematic of what is happening and what it will look like to put in the information kiosk, so the community members can see what the plan is, because
Are you
we've
asking?
seen it.
We can kind of give you that right now if you
Well,
like.
and we
Well-
don't need to take time tonight, but it would just be nice going forward to just be able to have my head around, okay, this is what's gonna happen, and these are the things that will be in place.
So you're asking for that at the meeting on the 24th?
And I won't be here, but
And
just,
then
that's
right, you would be
just
gone.
for
And
clarification.
then also, after that point, or when we can, to put that information, that schematic up in the kiosk for public
Once we
view.
know, so that community
that
understands what's
possible?
happening.
The easy yes is list formats, right?
I like
The
this, yes.
non-easy ask, we've expended 100% plus of our budget with Cameron and McCarthy, who is the landscape architects, who would be the one drawing the amended site plans. We can, we can see what we can do on the visual side without spending, that gets expensive really quick. Because we have looked at that already, because when we talk about community fundraising and elements that are grant deliverable requirements that aren't in the bid packet strategy we're talking about, we definitely know we need to identify those and make it clear, so people hopefully are interested in participating in seeing those amenities, get there sooner rather than later.
So
And-
my,
and to-
my suggestion, oh, go ahead.
To be honest, there really, on the plan that we already have, there really isn't anything that the public is going to see that's different.
It's different.
There's two items that are gonna be omitted. One is the mow strip. And that was just for ease of maintenance along the walk paths and around the restroom. So the operations team could get in there and mow a little bit easier. So that was $8,500. The other one is the remove and relocate the existing ornamental light.
Is that still happening?
No. So
Well, there,
yes and no.
right.
Yes and no. The contractor won't be doing that work. We're just going to remove and cap. So that $12,000 is what we're looking at, or funds, reducing funds and not reducing elements. I guess that's an easy way to put it, right? So there's not really anything, even if we took it to Cameron and McCarthy, there wouldn't be anything that they would be changing.
So I
So
don't,
whatever
I
we
don't
currently
think
have in
what
place.
Counselor Smith is asking is that we do another
No.
artist rendering or another architectural rendering, but that we post a picture of what the proposed, and you can label it artist rendering, or, I mean, I see those all the time.
Right. There really isn't.
We had one at Main Street, sort of a picture that was in color.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the original from Cameron card. That was from 2022. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, basically, what I think we're talking about is a bit of visualization of, a little bit of marketing informational, about what this is gonna what this will turn into. And I think, as Brian said, we can't remove elements, right? So we're really working around the edges on those kind of non-grant related things that often happen in, honestly, you trim maintenance, you trim other things.
We thought that.
Some timing, we might have some timing things for the community. We'd be, Memorial Day next year, open it up, available. We'll have the plantings, we'll have a lot of that stuff done, but it won't be 100% done. There'll be some elements that will still be into the next fiscal year. So we probably, it's not.
But it'll be usable.
Oh, absolutely. It'll be great. But we'll have some things that will come, throughout the summer, probably.
I think
We-
we're good.
we put,
Counselor Lehman?
You said there might be some community investment or whatever. If there's some neighbor areas, I've been involved in some fundraisers where people donate $100 for the brick that's got their name engraved on it, and that might be one way to get some community involvement.
Parks and Tree has come up with a lot of different suggestions exactly like that. Yeah.
And part of it, they'll need some help, I think, with, like, if we are going to have, say, the fountain donated, that some way to help that process for the donation, but that can come in discussions.
All
later.
things to work on.
We're
Counselor
really
Wells?
put a strategy.
Go ahead.
Where do you see a rendering of this park? I've
So,
never seen it, and it's not on the website, and people have asked me, what are they gonna do? And
we,
I've never been
Putting it
able to
on the
show it.
website is probably a good suggestion.
we did take it to Main Streets,
Yeah.
and they had a poster board with all of the concerts in the park. They had it there that had, if you didn't see it, it should have been there.
Well, I didn't see it, I wasn't
We're
looking.
probably
Okay.
working.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway, it was supposed to be there, and it was on, an easel, and
Be nice to put that in the community, but yeah.
The
And I
newsletter.
think that's-
seen it either.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it is, it's been a work in progress.
Yeah.
And so I think now that it's getting narrowed down, that was my intent, so that
Yeah.
the public they see the work starting, they know
Yeah.
a general idea of what we're doing, and to put it in the new country Countryman newspaper at some point would probably be a good idea in the city section.
Yep, we can do all that. And that was our plan. And really, when we're talking fundraising, we'll need to be all on the same page and strategic about how we do any donation fundraising campaign, because it is a campaign. And campaigns need to be developed and concise and clear.
So what you need from us at this point is a head nod to move forward with your plan to
Right, to you acknowledging that, yeah, the next council meeting, the special meeting in front of you then would be a bid award and authorization for contract that is approximately 75,000 less than what was originally done, and a resolution to appropriate 144,80 of Parks SDCs to utilize to fund cover the shortfall.
What would the balance be in that fund?
About the same.
Yeah, about the same. I'll bring the more current total, the August total at the meeting.
Just to let you know, I will be out of town that week. I've confirmed that. So I might not be here unless you need me to join by Zoom, but I would.
right.
Yeah, if we can't get a quorum, we'll have it on the regular October meeting. It was, when we discussed it with the low bidder, their preference because of the season, especially the mounding earthwork part, that was the first order of business, is to get that mounding done. And of course, as they described it, it gets to be like you're frosting a cake in the slop in the mud. But it's not a deal killer if we don't have a quorum for that date. I just wanted to see if that was a possibility.
We know we're 2 down.
Okay. Yep.
Counselor Smith and Counselor Engelbrechtson will both be out of town.
Do we want to get what their preferences are?
No, that's okay. We can just move, we can move on, because that would be a vote at that meeting. So if we do not have a quorum for the 24th, we'll do the vote at the October meeting. Understood that correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. That would be.
Just have to push it back.
That would be October 8th, I believe, is our
Which
next
isn't
regular.
terrible,
It's
by the way,
not.
but the rains hold off a bit.
I know for some reasons we want the rain, for other reasons we don't want the rain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
double it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great discussion,
Yep.
great questions, great suggestions. Productive, very productive. I think this is something near and dear to all of our hearts. And next is the city logo and the proposed changes, upgrades.
Yeah, shifting gears quite a bit from capital project to a logo. And, I noted in the staff report that it can seem relatively benign, and in some ways it is. But, I'll back up first. This actually originated with the work plan from the prior, from the 2023 council retreat. So it was one of the 80 or so task items that I inherited, or that we that were a lot had been worked on and some hadn't. So we talked about this in December and clarified that it was still of interest to pursue, but not at a high level from either cost or large community involvement, but still worthy of pursuit. And I did this at the last jurisdiction I was in, and I think it I think it matters. I think it's worth looking at how we brand our organization, and it really is the organization more so than the community. Main Street has a version of branding the community from the visitor and tourism side. This is really, the local government is a heavy component of the community, so it's not super different than branding a community, but it is different. It's branding the organization. And from a city staff perspective, we use the logo all the time, every contract, every agreement, every correspondence. And so I think it carries weight. Every Zoom that I'm on, before my face pops on, the logo's behind it. And sometimes my face never pops on. It's just the logo the entire meeting. So what we did based on some input from the December meeting is we have two options, and I've learned from doing these that you shouldn't give too many options. You try and give a few and get some feedback. And we've had iterations of both of these internally that staff went through and has made some tweaks to. But what we have is kind of a revision, which is just an updating of the circle, and a small evolution of that. And then the second one is labeled as a rebrand, which is a little more significant look and feel. And both of them, I think have more of a more distinction.
Would be the sort of revision, the updating of our current logo.
Yes.
And then page 2 is labeled the rebrand.
Yes, revise and rebrand, and you're right. We have 1 and 2, and the stuff below it. There's the primary and the secondary or secondary and sub logos. With branding and with any logo work in any organization is typically some sort of a guide, and it's typically called a style guide for how you use the logos, when you use the primary, when you use the sub logo, when you're putting it on business cards, how does it look? How big is it? What is the exact color? You lock the aspect ratio so you don't get oblong stuff and weird permutations. You don't get to tweak the colors on your own. It's locked in. You develop templates for memos and letterheads and all of the things, and ultimately vehicles and all of that. So the goal is to get your feedback and hopefully a solid direction on one or the other. And implementation in a fairly high digital world is off. A lot of the first implementations really simple, very, very, very inexpensive. It's just us updating all of our digital materials. And the goal is really then on the things that aren't digital is to, as we replace, as we do other things, we just swap the logo. We don't have any intention or plan to proactively do a big curtain reveal and all, one day everything that we have is rebranded to whichever logo you pick. But it's just to be opportunistic and change them over time. Again, we spent a lot of time dissecting internally the elements and adding things and tweaking. We took some informal, not informal, we took some votes at leadership team meetings, and I think we came to stalemates. We didn't have any real winners. We had great opinions, but we did not have any unanimous of anyone. I think that I could sum it up to say I think staff is excited to see whichever to evolve the current to something and freshen that up, whether it's a smaller evolution or significant.
What you're asking of us then is sort of which color. If you look at the first page, you look at there's blue or there's black.
Well, no, actually, that it's one or the other. So what a graphic designer does is show you what it looks like when it's done in its full color or when it's produced in a black and white version if it's copied. So it's really you're picking one set or the other.
So either the circle or with the impression of what Coburg Hills and the river.
Exactly.
That's the second.
Yeah, you're
What
picking.
you need from us is a decision.
That would be excellent. Yes.
Well, right. Page 59 or 60.
One element that I really felt was important, and we talked about it a bunch, was having it say city of. That Coburg, Oregon, and we originally took the Oregon part out, and then I thought, actually that helps. It works. It's good. So we added the Oregon back in, but the city of, I think is really important because that's what we are as an entity and an organization. And then the established date, we had a lot of discussion about that. Historically, if you look at Coburg, there's lots of dates you can pick. You know, this one I think is a defendable one. You know, and you can get really wonky and look at, you know, home rule and charter, you know, incorporation. So that's why you use establish. In a lot of cities, you'll see that in Inc. in a date is different than established in a date for almost all cities. A city is established. That's a little looser terminology than incorporated. That's a very specific date that's often much later than somebody's established date. So it's typically the established date is what's used. But that probably from my standpoint, the most important distinction really is adding the city of. I think that's what I thought was key.
There are other Coburgs in
There are.
the
Mhm.
United States, and there are other Coburgs across the world. So,
And we often deal with, you know, our regional partners when we're talking funding, you know, they can come out of a Sacramento office, Seattle, you know, it actually weirdly, when we're dealing with some of our financial stuff, having Oregon on there, actually, it's like, oh, you know, we deal with people out of state more than we probably realize.
I know it's in Oregon, hopefully, but no,
Yeah.
not necessarily. Okay, I will entertain a motion, and then we will open it up for discussion if anyone is brave enough to do that. Counselor Lehman,
I move that we approve the City of Coburg logo rebrand.
that would be the one on page 60, for clarification.
Are
Do we
we
have a-
approving a particular one or just approving the process to choose one?
No, it's the package. So when it comes together, so the sub logo or the secondary logos are a part of the whole thing. So when you pick one, all of those get used differently. So the color and the black and white, the two big ones, those are what's called the primary logo. The other ones that are smaller on each page go with that primary as secondary logos for specific uses. They don't get used the same way, but they are part of a style package and a logo package. So it's a kind of a A or a B pick, the circle or the rebrand.
Adam,
Maybe that we individually hold and counselors on a vote on this instead of being a motion. You think that would help clarify it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if a motion, if everybody's on the same page, a motion works fine. If there's more debate, I don't know. You're right. It's
What if we just put a star next to the one that we like and we can see how?
No, we have to, it has to, well, let's get it out.
either way ultimately works if everybody's okay with.
We do have a motion on the table to go with page 60, which is the more linear that says City of Coburg, established 1865.
And that's the one with the holes in the river.
Yes, yes.
See, I prefer the one on page 59. I look traditional in it.
We have a motion, on the table. I'm looking for a second
Oh, yeah.
at this point. Haven't got a second, the motion dies due to confusion.
Is it appropriate to ask questions?
Yes, go
Not-
ahead.
well, not
It's
until
question.
a second. I mean, there's
There's no second.
There
right.
was no
If it's
second,
if it dies,
so if
then
we're good- if it's dead,
then it goes
we're
back to
putting it
discussion.
off the
Yeah.
table.
And
Yeah.
I apologize if I,
No, you're fine.
that's the
This is
challenge
a-
with
This is a rather
the-
confusing process, which is why Sammy is saying maybe we should just take a vote. Councilor Engelbretson.
Not to jump in front of others, but on the page 60 option, the one thing that kind of gives me pause is the page 59, it does say City of Coburg, Oregon, and I like that. The one on 60 doesn't have Oregon. And that would be my only kind of hesitation on that. I like you said, I kind of like seeing the whole thing, City of Coburg, Oregon. That's very clear what that is.
Right. But that was the same question I had. Can this go through one more revision, adding Oregon in that second logo?
If we chose the second logo, could Oregon be added?
You can do whatever you want with this one. The
Just make a
Yeah, the
decision.
challenge is, yeah, from a graphic designer perspective, they may cringe at amateurs, you know, and me included. I gladly call myself an amateur on this. There is actually a lot that goes into logos and style design, but absolutely is the short answer. If that is, if you like everything about this second one, but want to add the word Oregon somehow, some way, we would bring you back in October or November, one or two options that say Oregon, and we can go on for months, or we can chop it whenever you all are ready to chop it. This is a weird one. This is a weird process that you can. There's no outside agencies or state or federal laws doing anything to you tonight. You can kind of pick what you want.
I've been talking about this for several years, trying to.
Yeah.
date our-
And the goal is this sticks for, you know, a decade plus, easily. You know, that's the goal, is that it's a long, because it takes a while to develop and establish, and it'd probably take us multiple years even to get it all the way implemented. So.
Well, I will just throw out, I like the one on 59 and I'm fine with that. And it already has Oregon on it. Throw that out.
And I'll throw out that the one on 59, I think it, when I think about legal business and financial, this looks professional to me. I like this, but it looks a little, I guess just.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the logo refurbish, not the rebrand, but the one on page 59.
I'll second.
Have a motion. We have a second. We have a motion by Counselor B. And a second by Counselor L. Counselor Lehman, sorry, I lost my train there. To adopt the city logo option 1, I'm going to call that page 59. To replace the existing city logo and direct staff to move forward with the development of a style and use guide to cost effectively implement the new logo throughout the organization and community as appropriate. So that means that we will be phasing it in. We aren't going to dump all of the letterhead and start fresh. We'll just use it up. And as new cards are made, they'll come out with the new logo.
Which color? Do we have
It
to
comes
choose a
in
color?
both colors.
comes in
No, we
both.
do not need to choose a
Good,
color.
Okay.
No. That was my silly question too. So it will be
Yeah.
utilized, probably I don't know.
The color was just to show what it looks like if it's copied, right? Because we end up with a lot of things that are copied in black and white. So you wanted,
The city administrator's report with it coming out in color.
But if it was
This is what it would look, the new
Yeah.
logo, if it's printed in color, but if it's black and white, which comes up on other things, then yes.
if the blue had 2 or 3 shades of blue, or if it had gradients, then it's really important to show it also in black and white, because it can look really weird and really different on if the shades don't track well. So that's why graphic designers do that.
We have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Good job, guys. I'm going to ask for those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? None. So the motion passes 5-0. We have a process for a new logo. Excellent work. That is not easy.
Yeah.
Good job. All right, administrative information reports. Adam, do you have anything you need to share with us?
Well, I will just, financial end of year report. This is preliminary. We're in the middle of audit, but wanted to share with you the end of fiscal year preliminaries. Nothing really jumps out at me in a negative. I think, we'll be able to give you a little more analysis after, when the audit is complete and we have everything. We are in the process right now. July just was balanced and August will be balanced here soon. So the next report will be 2/12 of the way through the budget. So the first quarterly report will really give us a good sense of where things are on the expense side. Not the revenue side obviously is somewhat skewed by how our revenue streams work. But generally, this is for your information. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Fund balances look pretty okay. Really the capital, how we estimated the capital spend is really what swings fund balances the most, because that's the most expensive. I will note on the compliance side, the budgetary compliance, we did need almost all of the little supplemental we did at the end of the year that we squeaked in on those line items that were 99 point whatever. So we did accomplish our budgetary compliance, and they were close. And I think every year that goes by as we tweak our stuff, I think we'll see those earlier. We'll hopefully be also budget where we know that we don't need to do that, but it also isn't the end of the world if I expect to have 1 or 2 supplementals a year for various reasons. So I think we look solid and solid as we expected. We're not flush by any means, but we looked okay as we finished the year.
So the general fund on page 61, your cash balances for 24, the general fund is less than in 23, and that's because of the shift of the SDCs, the reserve funds. Is that correct?
Cash balances are a little harder to track. If you look at page 63,
Okay.
That's the general fund on the fund statement basis, and what we had, it actually shows what you're getting at, the restricted. So at the end of the fiscal, that's where I was scrambling for that number earlier in our conversation about Pavilion Park. So the unappropriated ending fund balance of 342, 294 is better than it was the prior year when we had some of the financial analysts that gave us our ratings. This is up compared to that. It's still below where we'd want it to be, but because we'd love to look at the 624 as the number, but the people that know financial ratings know to pull out SDCs as a restricted amount. So those aren't able to be spent on whatever we want. So that I think is what, Mayor, you were getting at there. Yeah. So pretty good. But it's something that, obviously, as we talk about the revenue subcommittee, that is a key thing, is where should that be and what revenue streams do we need to talk about to reach there? Because if you look at on the revenue side of that page, the budgeted to actual on property taxes, really close. That's a very good estimate, but that's that grows at a slower rate than our expenses grow, and that's the number one revenue stream. And as you see on license permits and fees, that one is dependent upon development, and had a little lull there. At least probably was just a comparison of how fast that subdivision would build out was really the change in that number. And that's a tough one to guess. I mean, it truly is a guess because we're not in control of it. I think we're solid. Nothing really to report that I had a high level of concern with on the preliminary end of year numbers.
And audit is going well.
Yeah, audit's going real well. They were on site. The second day on site was Tuesday, this last week. Thank you. and did some follow-up on some of our, I can't remember what we were meeting with and they were looking for. There was just a couple little things. All got it to them electronically. We're on track for a standard completion timeframe. We've reiterated that multiple times. So I don't expect to have the audit coming past December. We're going to be scheduling that for December.
I know last year was a little blip in the normal because of all of the federal funds and the kerfuffle there. So
Yep.
That's good.
So as Sammy noted, the police department quarterly report is not in this meeting. That was Larry and I, mostly me, wires crossed on that. So we'll catch up on that for you soon. And then I could go through relatively quickly the city administration report if you'd like. I decided we're getting close to a couple projects being complete. So I wanted to give a little more of a highlight than just the table that has the list of projects going on. Super exciting to see the Public Works Operations Building coming close to completion. Brian was just in a meeting with them today. We had hoped to have you all out before the meeting in October. We're probably going to be, they're still going to be doing stuff in there. We had to defer or change the schedule a little bit on some of the interior sheetrock and painting and all of that. So we're probably not going to get CFO till mid-October. So I think we'll schedule the November meeting for you all to come out, and that. Yeah, maybe. Although Brian's got the drainage all figured out up there, it should be no problem at all. Yeah.
Not any water inside.
A good test.
But it's really, I mean, taking shape, and Brian and Burke and team can now really envision where the equipment's going to go, where the rack for the for the vehicle maintenance stuff's going to go, where offices and stuff. It's awesome. So that is we're excited to see that finish up, and just to get a bunch of meetings and a bunch of oversight and monitoring off of our plates, because even though we have Branch handling the majority of that business for us, Brian has to be very involved in all phases. So
Scratch the October 8th and
yeah,
cancel in November.
Yeah, that was an update as of today. So today's update is scratch that in it. Yeah.
That's exciting. It's been a long time
Yeah.
coming.
The other one is more visible that you all can kind of check out daily is North Willamette, Macy and Harrison reconstruction. That one's moving right along. They're on schedule. Paving is scheduled for the week of the 23rd. The first week in October will be punch list type stuff. There'll probably be some striping and re-putting up a few of the signage and, a lot of the cleanup, but paving will be done in September is the plan, unless something really weird happens. So that's going really well. And Brian's been able to be right on top of that one, and a great foreman on the job site as well to work with. Pavilion Park, we've probably talked that one through plenty. And well number 3, construction and connection. This is kind of the marquee project to complete with our water loan funds. And this is one where I added something really, really last second to the back of the city administration report, because second paragraph on the loan stuff is also incorrect. I had a meeting with Business Oregon today on a couple different topics associated with this. And I'm not sure where I got it, but originally I had understood it to be a 20-year note. And I think when we talked last at the July water system work session, Councilor Lehman had a question about it, and we were fine tuning the amount that we were estimating. So
that's on this separate piece.
Yep, that's on a separate piece that is right from Business Oregon at about 3:00 this afternoon. It's a 30-year note. There's an interest payment that we have to pay for the interest that's occurred as we've done drawdowns on the increments that we've drawn down, accrued interest of about $72,000 to $75,000 that'll come right at the beginning. And then we'll have annual 30 years of annual payments of about $185,000. that could change slightly depending upon if we spend down the entirety of the loan or if the well 3 treatment building and transmission line, if it falls short, we may have a couple $100,000 sitting there that we'll then have to decide whether we couple with our own money to get another project done, or we let it slide and our annual, goes down a little bit, our debt service. It'll kind of depend on how much money is left over, and what's the cost of the next project up. And if that covers 50% of it and we have 50% of cash funding available, we'll come to you with that question.
So does our date start on, what's the starting date for the 30 years?
We're gonna applying for an extension to get all of the work. So the goal would be the extension of in fall of 26. So it would be December of 26 is when it would start.
So then it would be 30 years, so that would be.
Not this next budget. Yeah, we'll be.
56?
Yeah.
Is that true? Yeah? Oh, I probably won't be here.
Very low.
You already have your vacation.
Yeah, I have my vacation plan.
Yeah.
I'll be
Yeah.
very, very old.
Yeah, and that's a challenge when we start seeing, as we've talked about, when these get layered on top and they're long-term commitments, that's a challenge. It's a 1% note, which is a very competitive note, so you don't really refi these too often. So they're there. They're there, and our rates then have to account for that duration. So, but I wanted to make sure that that we had the most accurate information for that. And as we get through budgets and CIP, we'll lock all those in, and that'll be just a matter of business. And Councillor Lehman also noted before the meeting, I should have used the acronyms. That's 150 gallons per minute, not per day of that well. That would be a really poor producing well at 150 gallons a day. So sorry about that. That's a 150 gallon a minute GPM. I will edit that one before we throw this out on social media. That's a bad one.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But the well project, just for a overview, the well has been drilled. We've had it tested. We know we're at 150, 160 gallon a minute. The next steps that we're finishing design for are the treatment building that house the treatment equipment, and the surrounding, the fencing and the access and all of that. Subsequent to that project being done, then is the transmission line that takes the water from the treatment, from the well to the treatment building, from the treatment building into our distribution system. And that's I think that's a mile, Brian? Yeah, about a mile. That goes through county roads, county permits, and not a cheap one. We were able to size it. It was originally at a 12-inch and it's now engineered at an 8-inch. So there's some savings there as an 8-inch line instead. So that probably the combination of those two things connects the well to our distribution system and pretty well exhausts the water loan funds. And we'll see, like I said, the increment that's left. And then we'll figure out how to start talking about finding funding for the next round of infrastructure. U.S. Postal Service, I just wanted to give an update on this. This has been mainly led by a resident. It's been, I don't want to jinx it, it's been successful so far. He's made great progress. The mayor's been a little more involved than I have, but I've been in the loop with some emailing and some coordination. But Mike Watson has been persistent and really strategic about his persistence in getting at least some eyes open and some ears open. So not sure where it goes, but
We were supposed to meet again last week. That did not happen because they couldn't get a hold of one of their suppliers. They couldn't get a response. So supposedly this week we will have a meeting. There's still 3 days in this week and we'll see.
yeah, but it's I think the most progress we've had in quite a while.
It's a huge amount of
yeah.
progress. I think that what happened is that you know, once Mr. Watson figured out who to get the concerns to, and that was a Herculean effort to just figure out who to get the concerns to, how to write the concerns. Then he put that out and there were 50 letters of concern written to the complaint department. And then from this community, and that got their attention. When you start getting 50 complaints from a community of our size, there's something wrong. So it will be, we're looking at mail routes, we're looking at, you know, the adequacy of the current post office, the size basically of the current post office, though I don't know where else we would put a post office, a village post office, much as we have now. But also the possibility of adding neighborhood mailboxes, the banks of mailboxes that we see in the new developments and in some areas of town. So I think that's what the post office, postal service, USPS, in all honesty, is what they're looking at this point. So there are still some unanswered questions, many, but you know, we are making progress. Dr. Bowman.
Well, I have to say I commend this gentleman's effort. I really do, because the mayor, the mail has been a bugbear in this community for
It's difficult.
a long time. I mean, my grandparents have stories going back to the 80s.
Well, and everything won't change. Obviously, we don't have a magic wand that can
Well,
make it
sure.
all better.
But everything is better than nothing.
That's right, but we hope to make some positive steps forward. Absolutely. Yeah, and Mike Watson was really, truly instrumental in getting this, tracking down how to do this.
Yeah, it's like the railroad. Once you find the right person at the railroad, you can get things done. And the railroad and the post office has some similarities, but another item that is just attached to the back that of interest, and the mayor included a few nuggets of it in her recent community update. It's a community profile and labor market report from the employment department. Just had some really good demographics that that I think are useful to keep track of, especially interesting and I think unique statewide is the ratio on the workers employed in our area versus the workers living in our area. So the ingress egress ratio to the resident population, that is not a normal ratio, and I don't think that's not a bad thing at all. It's just a unique element for us. And I think it actually leverages some positive things for us. So it was just interesting to actually see the stat. You intuitively know that. It's just good to see the stat on it that they track. We talked about the camping ordinance review a little bit. I think Councilor Lehman had a question soon after the Supreme Court case, and I just committed at that time to check in with Carrie Connolly, who was the one that helped counsel with the drafting of the ordinance that's in place now, and just asked her to give her assessment. I told her what my amateur attorney assessment was of the situation, and fortunately for me, she concurred generally that the state House Bill 3115 really drives what goes on in Oregon, and the Supreme Court case so far hasn't, until the legislative session possibly would address some things, but the Supreme Court case was fairly narrow for one, and for two, Oregon has House Bill 3115, and so her assessment is we are still in really good shape. We should not be messing with that. That might come in a year or two that need to be revised. I think if and when that does, it'll be widely publicized. I think we won't miss it. A lot of cities will be looking for that as well if we need to change anything. So just wanted to give that summary as I committed in a prior meeting to do that. And then the final note was since I've been here a year. It was time for annual reviews. I had mine and we did ours with the leadership teams, department heads, and just wanted to give a summary of the process. And we did a little bit of looking back, and most, the lion's share is looking forward. And the second paragraph is really the key from my standpoint. It's really an excellent group of kind of skilled individuals that lead all of our departments, get along really well, collaborate well, communicate well. Stuff we talked about on the one-on-ones. There's plenty of things to work on individually on both sides of the table to help each other. But it's a great group, and it helped us a lot for our work planning that we'll do and coming on after that process. And so I added an attachment at the back just after that demographic data. It's kind of just a 2-pager on how we're doing our evaluation and work planning and kind of tracking of that, just for your info. And then the rest of it is kind of our regular template of things, the projects, contracts that have been signed to date. And then citizen inquiries was an ask to return to the city administration report. I think when I got here, I dropped it maybe, and we've added it back. Had a little flurry. There wasn't much to add in the past 2 months that I've had it on here, and had a flurry. I don't know if everybody feels summer is over and they're nestling back in and have more to ask us about or more to check in. But I think it's a good opportunity for you all to ask general questions. I'd prefer not to talk about the meat of any particular code enforcement thing, but it gives a sense of what types of things we're getting in this time of year. Catching a few of the straggling noxious vegetation is probably the primary, chasing those down. Sometimes they're a regrowth. Sometimes they're a matter of opinion about whether it's an unsightly or if it's truly a fire hazard. Those are hard sometimes for us at this time of year to say, sorry, we're not going to address that. Yes, it doesn't look great, but it's really minimal from a fire hazard. A few abandoned vehicles. Chief Larson and his team have been putting the stickers on those as we go. So most of them are just work their way through. We have some that we're awaiting some evaluation. A tree, we're awaiting the evaluation from the arborist just to validate whether it truly is dangerous to the degree the inquirer or complainant says. So, the takeaway there is, we're not always the popular response on these. Sometimes we will be disagreeing with the people stating their complaints, but we will evaluate every single one of them and notate down our findings and what course of action we take. And so those are all the details are logged in, and these get distributed to a department head, and sometimes they handle them themselves. Sometimes they'll give them to their staffs for follow-up. And then they all roll back up to me with all the notes, and we see whether we feel good and comfortable and close them out. Have we communicated well and close it? Or do we have more follow-up? So that's it on the flurry of those. And I'll try and keep probably a 2-ish, 3-month rolling probably. I don't know if we want to just grow it all the way. I mean, I'm glad to, but I can leave on all old ones that are still active and then grab the new that are active and open. Does that work? Okay. Because some do take a while. That noise one, Chief Larson is we've got the noise meter out. We're doing testing. Yeah, right. And those often have super long tails to them. Yeah. But that is, if they say active, they truly are active. We are doing something about them, and we haven't resolved them. Yeah, that one, that's a lot of work, and there's still a little follow-up to do, to make sure that investment, is maximized. So Brian's really been monitoring all that closely. And then the new art that we got up before Antique Fair, it looks awesome.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, nice work all the way around. That's a nice addition.
Yeah, I heard a comment about that. They were happy. Some of the people that worked on that mural were really happy to see it go up.
Okay.
Yeah, great. I think there's still some fine tuning of the framing around it just as finished, but the goal was to get that up and installed before Antique Fair. So we pushed real hard. Brian got that done. That's it, I think. Let me see what else is back on the agenda. Oh, yeah, that's it for me. I'll shift it over to the city recorder and city elections officer.
So our general election process for the city side is completed. I turned in 4 certified statements of candidacy to appear on the ballot that you guys should start seeing on about October 16th. We received 1 for our mayor position and then 3 for city councilor positions. They're all listed there. And I think everything else is just kind of listed in what's next. Not much until November 5th.
Big election. All around. Everybody vote.
Quite a few behind the scenes steps involved for Sammy, so it's nicely done. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, yeah, it just hit the easy button.
Yeah.
Right. No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, not at all. You're right. You're right. Anything else? Any counselor comments? Any updates from liaison commitments, meeting reports?
Wasn't that the last parts meeting? So
Lane Act took a break in August also, so
Yeah.
it's nice. Good timing.
Tomorrow night, you have a lane.
Yeah, Lane Act tomorrow,
Yes.
pick back up tomorrow night
I
again.
guess I should say that I will be at the next Parks and Tree meeting as well. Because I told Tom that I would be there, so I will be there. It's great to have, various, yes, we have a liaison assigned, but it is council members are always encouraged or invited to attend. Well, but we have to be careful about a quorum. Yeah. So we can't have too many of us attend at once, but,
Which I think, sorry. I was just gonna say, which I think is great, for like Councilor Bowman did, if anybody is planning to attend an extra meeting that they're not a liaison for, this is a great spot just to mention it. So we make sure we don't accidentally have quorum issues. So I appreciate that.
and also Heritage tomorrow night too.
Great.
Have a lot of active committees and commissions in this city and a lot of community involvement. All right, well, anything else for the good of the order? If not, I will adjourn this meeting at 8 o'clock.